feel it coming over me. I feel it all around me. I've been waiting for this moment all my life. It's my destiny. There's no tide to settle me. It's waiting to come out now. No matter what, no matter how, I know I'll make it through somehow. Cause when the road feels so long, I'll still be holding on. I'm gonna keep on going. I know I'll be strong. Yeah, indestructible. I won't let nobody break me down.
So the new season of Fortnite Battle Royale is just dropped. Chapter 3 Season 2. Now, at first I saw the trailer and it was like the most uneventful and possibly one of the most boring seasons I've ever laid eyes upon. However, there were two things that caught my interest. First of which being the the page 8 skin, that one. And second of all, it was the fact that there's no build. There is no building anymore. You heard me right. 9 days of this new season, there will be no builds whatsoever. It will be pure cover-based combat. Now, to compensate for this, they have introduced a few new mechanics. First of which is the new parkour system, where you can basically look at a ledge and hold A to mantle it. If you need a best comparison, what I can think of right now is obviously the Dying Light games, where if you look at a ledge and hold RB, for example, on Xbox, you will climb that ledge. Unfortunately, there is no wall running or anything like that. However, we do get the sprinting, so that's very cool, and plus it gives sliding a bit more usage now. And second of all, they've introduced an overshield mechanic. Basically your shield on shield, I guess. Basically giving you a little bit more health and shield to, withstand being out in the open. Even though, like, half the time it doesn't really work. But it's nice that the devs at least thought of this. So you might be asking yourself, well, Brad, didn't you make an entire video dedicated to the fact that building was destroying the player base? Sweats were just too good. And it was causing the game to be really unfun to play because you basically stood no chance. Yes, I did. So why am I making this video now? Because I want to discuss the fact that now that builds are out of the game, at least for a few days, and maybe it might be its own mode in the foreseeable future, judging by how popular Fortnite is getting, I wanted to touch on the pros and cons of this decision, and why I personally think it's a mixed bag. Even though I've said building is the main issue with obviously sweats in Fortnite, it doesn't mean it's perfect. So yeah, let's get right into the video. We'll start out with the pros. So the positives of Fortnite having a no build start to this season are as follows. Let's start off with the fact that there's no more sweaty cranking. Do you remember the last time I made a video on this, on how that footage of that guy just cranking up to the moon, which was real footage, by the way. I shot someone with a sniper rifle in a solo game and it immediately cranked. Well, for the last 9 days, there's been none of that. There's been no more of that. This is of course pretty good for both new, experienced and even long-time players. Primarily because of the fact that, there's more gunfights that are going to be more equal and balanced. Gunfights are going to be less, dependent on building and more on the fact that can you land your shots. Which I've seen a lot of people argue is a very healthy factor in the game, and that people really enjoy that building really took away. So that's obviously good. Secondly, it's the fact that gunfights are going to have a level of strategy to them now, rather than just build to win. And what I mean by this is that when you get shot at, you're introduced with new mechanics such as the running mechanic, the parkour mechanic that lets you evade gunshots and, get to cover. And obviously the cover around the map has been given more purpose. It's actually useful this time around. Beforehand, you take cover and the builder would just build up like on top of you, jump down, fuck you up, and then you lose the game because you're nowhere near their skill level. Well, now that's not the case. You have mechanics such as overshield, which is basically, the substitute in quotation marks to building. And what I mean by this is that it'll allow you to take a few shots free before you have time to react. Now this is kind of a mixed bag though, but for the most part it does exactly what it intends to do, and that's give you a bit of a fighting chance when you're out in the open. Combined with the parkour and the running mechanic, the sprinting and such, it's just overall very good mechanics that make the combat experience a lot more diverse and enjoyable, and I overall think it's a good move on Epic's part. And for my last point in terms of positivity, I just think this is an overall fun change of pace. Like, no other season has done what this season has done now. Like, make such a drastic change to the game at the start of a season. Like, granted, it's not a permanent, nor is it a change for the rest of the season, at least at the time of recording this video, but it's just overall a very good change of pace. It allows the game to be more diverse and fresh and different. It allows players of all different types and skill levels to adapt to the new conditions set before them. It also allows newer players to actually have a chance at winning, or players that are just not good at building, period. Like, it gives them a lot of incentive to play the game now that they're more confident that they'll win a fight this time around and not be absolutely, wiped off the map by a builder. Now, all I've done so far is cover the positives of this new, this period of no builds, but I think it's only fair that we discuss the negatives of this outcome. Right off the gate, let me just say that for all the positives that no building has to offer, there sure are also a lot of negatives as well. Let's start off with the fact that cover is pretty scarce out in the open, especially considering the whole incentive of no building is to take cover and strategize. Well, when you're out in the open fields, even with overshield, parkour, and the sprint mechanic, I don't think the trees are going to last very long against, a hail of gunfire. I would know. I've done exactly this. I've been shot at and hid behind a tree, only for that tree to just die within 5 minutes because, the guns are doing too much damage and too many people shooting at once, There's not enough time to, cooperate, strategize, that sort of thing. And vice versa, battles become way too easy when you catch someone out in the open because 9 times out of 10, it usually spells the death. Because they ain't got anything to do outside of, try and survive the onslaught of you and your teammates, or in a solo game, just trying to survive. Solo games are a little bit more forgiving, but anything outside of solo games without builds is just a bit of a hellfire, I'm not gonna lie to you. Speaking of which, let's talk about the new vehicle. Now tell me this, lads. Do you remember the mechs and how they caused such a massive problem for builders and not players alike? Well, remember the fact that they nerfed the mechs and they were still a problem until the very end of the season? Well, how about we introduce a new vehicle known as the tank? Right? And we're going to give it amazing stopping power, both through its cannon and obviously its ram. But we're also going to add a turret that can literally eviscerate someone within seconds and destroy any and all cover that they have. Imagine a whole squadron on a tank. Like, what are you meant to do against that? Like, I know the answer is obviously shoot it up, but by the time you get the chance, the guy in the turret or the guy on the cannon is just gonna fuck you up. There's just not much you can do about it. What's worse, there's another vehicle that does almost the same purpose, and that's the new battle bus. You see, there's a new drivable battle bus now with 2 turrets on the top. Like, the turret from the tank, and there's also a single anti-vehicle turret that does 600 damage to the vehicle. Yes, it's just the vehicles are really overpowered, and in a non-build meta, that's a little bit too much. I mean, maybe when builds come back, there'll be much less of an issue, but for the foreseeable future, I see these vehicles being a real pain in the neck. And if they're bringing back helicopters and planes too, then fucking hell, poor builders, even with their builds back, I don't think they'll stand much chance. There's just too much going on with the vehicle. And the last negative point I'll bring up before moving on to the tweets is this new mentality players have. Like, you'll definitely see groups of people hiding a lot more now, like camping in rooms, hiding in bushes. Like, I get that's the mechanic, but it's like, when you see another set of players just fucking hide again and again and again and again and again, whenever you want to try and combat them, it's really annoying having to deal with people who just run away and just hide instead of, confronting the threat against them. Oh, this might just be a pet peeve of mine, but I just thought this is something that the no builds caused a spike in. A lot more people are running away now, and a lot more people are hiding. Now, you've heard what I've had to say, both my positive and my negative. Let's move on to what you guys have to say before we wrap up here. So I did a poll on whether or not you think Fortnite is better with or without building, and an overwhelming amount of you said 87.8% of people who voted. 50 people voted, and I'd say around 30 to 40 people said without building it's better. My math is terrible, so don't rely on that. With a 12.2% of people saying it's better with building. I'm gonna go through a few points and tweets people made, and I'm gonna like review what they said. Starting off with Toxic King Boo here. She says, honestly, way better without it. As someone who never enjoyed the building, I would always roll my eyes at the sight of that person that builds a tower only to die anyway. It was a nice breath of fresh air, and I absolutely agree. I do feel like it's a new change of pace for the game. It's something that should have been done. It will attract both older and newer players to the game again to try out the game without building. It's just, no matter what the response, I feel like Epic was successful in bringing players back with this change. And obviously, it's always nice to not have to deal with the really sweaty builders anymore. Freddy says here, Fortnite without builds has been the most fun I've had in the game in a long time. Not only have I finally been able to win more matches, but I finally don't have to worry about Mr. No Life coming at me building a goddamn 5-star hotel in 2 seconds. I hope no build stays. Also, the game can finally focus on strategies, planning instead of being able to build a tower because you hear a gunshot. In my opinion, this is one of, if not the best feature Fortnite has added in a long time. I agree with a lot of what he's saying here. Like, the fact that, it's more fun for players this time around, and you don't have to worry about the sweats, building a massive structure within, a small amount of time. One that's, like, very, very hard to combat against. And the fact that strategy is a lot more, like, focused on now without building. And I do agree with the fact that this is one of the best features Fortnite's added in a long time. That is a very valid point to make. But I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of flaws to this, but there's definitely a lot of positives as well, especially in terms of the player base. We've got an interesting one from Muffin Mythos here, and he says, it depends on the scenario. Competitively, it's better with build. Casually, better without it. Some people just don't sweat as hard at the game. I just want to play and shoot people without having to learn how to build like a maniac in each fight. This is a very good response. I really like this response because it's like, competitively, yes, I'd say it's definitely, there definitely should be building like in a competitive game because, that's the sort of place it belongs in, Like, you don't really go into a game of Fortnite with the boys and go, oh, I'm going to fucking crank. I'm going to do so much cranking. I'm going to fucking build a massive structure the moment I hear a gunshot in a casual game. Oh, I'm so sick. It's just like, no, like, come on, really? It's like, not only are you ruining the experience of other people, but you're also setting a massive skill gap that can't be crossed. Ducky here says, yes, because it adds something new to the game by taking away the main concept, and I'm all for it. It actually encourages you to use your environment instead of destroying literally everything. Plus, like 89% of the community says, it's nice to shoot someone and not having to deal with finding out a way to break down ever-expanding tower. Yeah, again, this is another point that I completely agree with, even with its flaws. The fact that people actually have to strategize, it's a new thing that people like of all skill levels have to adapt to, and it's overall just a very good decision, especially for a lot of the fan base who weren't really a fan of the building aspect. Narukami says this, without building depth, I know some people will cry get good, but there's no fun in the game when I glance at someone from 200 feet away and the next thing I know they are building the Taj Mahal in 5 nanoseconds. A few walls are fine to me. It's the sweat that ruins it. Granted, I might be looking at a more casual perspective. I think that if it was more competitive, I wouldn't mind the building, as it would most likely be 2 players of similar skill dueling it out. And again, Naru, even though I butchered his tweet, he makes a very valid point. Building obviously causes a lot of issues in terms of combat strategy, that sort of thing. Like, a lot of the precedent that myself and a lot of the fan base have is that the moment you shoot anyone, that's it. Like, you're going to have to deal with them building now. Like, that's the precedent. And 9 times out of 10, you can't deal with it because their skill level is at a level that you can never hope to reach, or you don't play the game competitively enough to reach that level. Because of, like, there's no reason to live your own. You've got, responsibilities, life, and that sort of thing to deal with. Whereas some people who play like this have none of that. Like, they just do not have any of that, and they have the time and the effort and the patience to, properly put effort into the game. But obviously, like, I feel like that sort of like player base should be kept into their own competitive game mode. This is the point that a lot of people made in the comments of my Sweats and Ruining Fortnite video, that they want the building to be put into a separate game mode and away from the main lobbies, like the casual lobbies are just hopping on for a game to play with the boys. Like, I for one agree with that, But at the same time, like, you can definitely foresee the issues that will cause, both for the player base and for, obviously, the skill gap. Silver here says, honestly, the removal of building has probably been the greatest feature Fortnite has introduced. Simply for the fact that now I'd have to worry about no-life sweats invading casual play modes with their try-hard structures. A few walls I can understand, but a hotel is honestly taking a piss. And overall, it just stops being fair then. At least this way, there's no debate if I lose. I got bested fair and square, so if they do decide to bring it back, or rather, when they decide to, I hope we get a non-build mode as a permanent category. What it means by that is, like the likes of Team Rumble, Imposters, modes that were so popular that they just made them permanent. But once again, Silver is spitting nothing but good points and facts. The removal of building is one of the greatest features Fortnite's introduced, both for the positive reasons and the negative reasons. It's like, no matter what, this is a massive change to the game. It's a massive change to the formula that Fortnite has set before it. And the reason for this is because a lot of the player base can now play the game without worrying about, the excessive building. And the fact that if they die to players, it's not because, the builds dictated this. It's because, they got bested and they're just going back to love it. Like, they just died. Like, there's no key factor in how amazingly OP pro you are at the game. You just died because you got gunned down by the better person. So Silver obviously makes a lot of good points here, and I agree with a lot of them. Chemical Players has a fucking long one here, and it says here, I'm definitely not going to be in the majority here, but it's better with building. The game got popular because of building, because it was different to H1Z1 and PUBG. And everyone says, well, now the sweats can't build, you saw it yourself, we play sweats, still have very good aim. And you're going to die to them anyways with the building. There's something to learn and get better at, which is the fun of gaming. Getting better at a game. For example, I know you was getting better at building last season, now you just die in 2 seconds because there's nothing there to cover against. If you don't like building, go play all the other Battle Royale games that are building, PUBG, H1Z1, Cardboard Zone, or Apex Legends, There's options for people to play, but the one thing they should do is make a no building mode in the game, but keep building in casual, in my opinion. Now, I don't really agree with, the keeping the building in casual, primarily because, there's people out there that just make the skill gap way too wide for it to be a fun experience for players. But I definitely do agree with what he's saying here. It's the fact that even without building, there's players that will, have absolutely god tier aim, know exactly how to hit you and never miss. That is a very realistic possibility, and this is something that the likes of Call of Duty and Apex Legends suffers from, and still does to this day. It's the fact that, above average aimed players, either through mods or, skill, will absolutely wipe out most of the player base because of how, how fucking OP they are. And I do agree with the building thing, oddly enough. Like, I do definitely see what you're saying. Like, if you, the moment you get better and better with building, it's like it's a fun little thing to, witness. You go from not knowing what you're doing to knowing exactly what you're doing. But where I don't agree is the fact that, building is just, it sets the precedent for, if you're going to win or lose. Now, majority of the time, why would I waste a lot of my free time getting better at building if there's players out there who will do what I can do, but a million times better and know exactly how to counter up whatever I do? But overall, I do get what he's saying, though. The building, with the game with building is better for progression's sake and obviously for cover's sake and, skill. Like, there's a unique attribute to Fortnite that's been taken away. I can definitely see the points he's making. I agree with a lot of them. Even if I disagree with some of them, he's made a lot of good points. I definitely do agree. 9191K says, building is a cool, defining feature of the game. It deserves to stay in. I just wish it was more limited. You shouldn't be able to place a build on every single frame, nor should you be able to stock up 3,000 materials. I massively agree with this statement. I feel like the building should stay, but it should either be limited or nerfed. I feel like that is definitely something that should happen. Like, imagine if building was brought back, but you had like a timer. You could only build so much at such a given time. I feel like that'd be a really a fun change of pace, both for experienced builders and for non-builders, because there's building, but now it's not as big as a threat as it usually is. It's obviously it's counterable and it's not something that can be exploited. But I do agree with what 91K is saying here. Like, building is a cool and defining feature of the game. I mean, it's the fort in Fortnite, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, I do think it should be limited. I think materials should be limited. I feel like there should be something done with the speed of building. I feel like that should be something they should focus on. The last tweet from Sociopath or Repurposed Hope here, they say, without building, makes it more fair. And you actually got to be good with the weapons that are in the game, despite Fortnite being based around building, having no builds. Or it's definitely better to me. There should at least be a mode that stays forever without building, like Team Rumble in my opinion. I think a lot of people consistently play Fortnite a lot more. And again, I agree with this. I feel like no building should be its own separate mode, like no build mode. I feel like a lot of people would play that mode, and the moment Epic do split the no builds into a separate LTM, like limited time mode, I feel like they will notice the spike of people playing that game instead of normal, instead of public games. And I do agree with the fact that the game without building means you got to be good with the weapons you're given. And I massively agree with that. Like, I've seen a lot of people kind of struggle with their aim, and obviously that ends with the fight, losing the fight. And, that's on them. It gives them incentive to practice with the weapons they're given and obviously improve their aim. Like, that's a really cool little feature that no building has given access to. So yeah, I agree with what Sociopath is saying here, and a lot of good points from it. There are a lot more tweets, but obviously I wanted to read the ones that had a lot more points to mention and weren't just repeats of what was said earlier. Like as many different tweets as possible. If you won in the video, well, at least thank you for taking part and voting. That I massively appreciate it. I thank you a lot for that. But let's move on to my conclusion. In conclusion, I'd say that Fortnite without building, for all its flaws, is a very good decision. And is this enough to deter sweats from ever playing the game? I would say no. The reason why I say no is because, well, building's going to come back eventually, that means the sweats will also come back. However, now we've got some alternatives to, not encounter them as often. For example, the no builds LTM, and obviously the no building for the next few days. So yeah, we got a good few days to have fun with the game, and we have to deal with the building skill gap. We don't have to deal with a massive chance of losing purely because we're not a builder. We could just hop on Fortnite, have a game with the boys, and see what happens. If you do enjoy this video, make sure to give it a like. I really worked hard on it. Make sure to also subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 200 subscribers. It's really cool. And yeah, I will see you all in the next video. Take care and goodbye.